This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Now look, I want to narrow in here on what John Guandolo has been pointing to over the years. It's just incredible how this has become a taboo subject in terms of how CNN talks about this collusion nonsense every night. You would think that the media would have been talking about this every night and should continue talking about it. John Brennan's conversion to Islam while he was in Saudi Arabia. Did this happen? Did this not happen? Let's say it didn't happen, or it did, but why can't this question be asked? Why hasn't anybody in the establishment media even asked this question one time? It's absolutely incredible, and it matters. If a CIA station chief converts to Islam and is devout and takes surahs 9.5 and 9.29 seriously, it's an issue. John Guandolo, what did you know about this back then, and what do you know about it now?
Well, first of all, I want to comment on something that Brad just said, because I think it's really critical. When I first brought this story to light and gave an interview about it, I had sources in Saudi Arabia that had direct knowledge that John Brennan said the Shahada while he was the station chief over there. And here is what I said in summation on that interview. It was the fact, and this is what Brad's talking about, is his incompetency, his unprofessionalism, John Brennan's unprofessionalism. When you do that in front of Saudi Mubahith, when you do that in front of Saudi officials, it just leaves this huge question mark of where's your loyalty, where's your maturity, where's your professionalism? Those are the questions I raised. Now, to ask the question about somebody converting to Islam, well, of course, Islam, the system of Islam is an evil and barbaric system. Does he know that? Does he know what Sharia requires? Does he know what all Sharia requires? It requires warfare against non-Muslims until the world's under an Islamic state. 100% of Islam requires that. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody that self-identifies as a Muslim believes that. However, all of Islam teaches that. That is the problem. So he's subscribed to an ideology that is hostile towards the United States. He did it in front of Saudi officials, including Saudi intelligence officials. That in a world where these things, where professionalism, and actually, if the CIA were doing its core mission, as Brad was alluding to, these are things that are wholly unacceptable and would lead to a guy like that being fired. But he's not only not fired, he's elevated to be the director of the CIA.
And the question was never asked. The question was never asked, John, one time during 8 years.
Right. Part of the reason is he's not the only station chief that converted to Islam. And I can tell you that the two FBI legal attachés in Saudi Arabia on 9/11, the legal attaché and the assistant legal attaché both converted to Islam by Saudi officials while they were there. I mean, so when you look at this, these are from their perspectives, it's an operation. Yeah. What I'm saying is we are like sixth graders in an environment full of PhDs when it's in the intelligence realm. I believe, look, I don't want to pat our enemies on the back too easily, but I'll just lay it at this and let Brad respond. You will not see Saudi intelligence, Chinese intelligence, and Russian intelligence allowing people to apply for positions in those organizations on the internet like the CIA and the FBI do. It's unprofessional. It's not the way to run a professional intelligence and organization. It's just not the way you do business. You recruit people based on the needs of the organization, and you need less people who are much more effective, not more bodies, because the threats are getting greater.
Thank you, John. Before we go to you, Brad, I just want to make this comment that there's that video of John Brennan giving this little talk there. Everybody look it up. Just look up John Brennan on YouTube. Says Islam is a religion of peace and jihad, whatever. It's a 3-minute clip. and he's just on fire talking about Islam being a religion of peace, and he's speaking Arabic. And I've studied fellow travelers all my life, and that euphoria that he's in, it's a typical fellow traveler that's worshiping the totalitarian entity that he's in front of. It's just a very creepy video. Let me go to you, Brad. Hopefully you'll say what you think of that video as well. But let's begin, Brad. What did you hear while you were at the CIA about Brennan's conversion?
Well, that it's true. I mean, I do have, I would say my information is similar to John's. I have a close personal friend I've known for nearly 40 years who was there, speaks Arabic and so on, and says he personally witnessed all of this. So I believe it's true. Now, that's not firsthand knowledge, it's secondhand knowledge, but it's secondhand knowledge from someone who was there, who I know was there, and had access to know. And I'm fully convinced that it's true that he converted to Islam. But I have no proof of that. It's only what someone has told me that I trust. But I believe it's true. Now, I do want to take a little bit different take on some of this stuff. I think that Brennan is still extraordinarily active within the intelligence field, and I think the fact that his clearance was taken away was a fabulous stroke of genius on the part of President Trump. It was really, I think it's going to be extraordinarily helpful, and let me explain why. They just named a new deputy director of the CIA, a guy named Vaughn Bishop. Now, Vaughn Bishop, handpicked by the current director, Gina Haspel. Now, there's something out of that that's extraordinarily unusual, and that was he was pulled out of retirement to come back and fill this deputy director of the CIA slot. Now, that isn't, that does happen from time to time, but in his case, it's the second time. He was also pulled out of retirement by none other than John Brennan to fill the position of ombudsman for his modernization program that we were referring to earlier. Now, that's one guy. There's another guy now who's the chief operating officer, the COO for the CIA, a guy named Andrew McCridis. Andrew was also handpicked by Gina Haspel, also pulled out of retirement to be put into that position, and previously was also handpicked by John Brennan to act as the head of the task force that he created to implement this modernization program. So now Gina Haspel herself was somebody that was a close associate. Nobody's looked at her either. Even in her hearings, her confirmation hearings at the Senate, nobody asked her anything that was very tough. They were going on about the torture program and the waterboarding and all of that. But ask yourself this question: Gina Haspel, again, there's a pattern here. Gina Haspel was chief of station in London. She was handpicked and brought back and made chief of station in London a second time by none other than John Brennan, and at a time when the Steele dossier was being put together. There's not been one person to ever ask a question of Gina Haspel about any of that. Now, don't know, but I would certainly like to know, did Gina Haspel have any part of any of that? All of these people that form the leadership of the CIA are all close associates of John Brennan. Now, the reason I mentioned that I think that this was such a serendipitous act to pull his clearance, he bitches and pisses and moans about the fact that his First Amendment rights are under attack by having this clearance pulled. But he's on MSNBC and NBC all the time saying whatever he wants. The fact that his clearance was pulled makes it easier for him to speak out, not harder, because he doesn't have the problem of maybe mixing up current classified information with whatever the topic of the day is on the news. So it makes it better. What makes it harder for him now is he cannot go back and have classified conversations with all the current leadership within the CIA, which are his close associates. So I think that's the real reason that John Brennan is so angry today at President Trump for having lost his clearance.